Yesterday, Trump went on Truth Social and called it a win, a decisive military victory, a big day for world peace. Iran begged for a ceasefire. That was the exact word Defense Secretary Hegseth used. Begged. And yet, as Trump was posting that message, Iran was doing something nobody expected, charging ships money to pass through one of the most critical waterways on Earth. Bitcoin payments, emailed requests. One ship reportedly paid $2 million just to get through. And Trump's response this morning? We're thinking of doing it as a joint venture. It's a beautiful thing. A joint venture with Iran to collect tolls on a strait that has been free to navigate since international maritime law was written. So, who actually won here? Stay with me, because what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz right now is one of the most extraordinary financial power grabs in modern history, and most people have no idea it's happening. Before we get into the money, you need to understand why this 21-mile wide stretch of water matters so much. The Strait of Hormuz sits between Iran and Oman, and it is the only sea passage connecting the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. There is no plan B. There is no alternate route that works at scale. In 2024, oil flow through the strait averaged 20 million barrels per day, roughly 20% of global petroleum consumption. Think about that. 1/5 of the world's oil supply passes through a waterway you could almost throw a stone across. During 2023-2025, 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas and 25% of all seaborne oil trade pass through the strait annually. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, they all depend on this passage. Iran shares a coastline with this strait. It sits on the northern edge, and that geography, more than any military capability, is what gives Tehran extraordinary leverage. You can bomb their missile sites. You can destroy their navy. You cannot move the map. When the US and Israel launched strikes on Iran in late February, most analysts assumed Tehran would be reluctant to close the strait because Iran exports its own oil through it. They were wrong. Iran did something smarter. They didn't close it for themselves. They closed it selectively. Iran managed to export well above 16 million barrels of oil since the beginning of March, according to the trade data platform Kepler. Their own tankers kept moving. Their revenue kept flowing. Meanwhile, tanker traffic through the strait dropped by approximately 70% initially, and then to near zero, disrupting about 20% of the world's daily oil supply. Only 6 or fewer ships were transiting daily, with Iran controlling access on a selective basis. The head of the International Energy Agency reportedly called it more consequential than the disruptions of 1973, 1979, and 2022 combined. And while the world scrambled, Iran was doing something quietly remarkable. They were monetizing the chaos they created. Here's where it gets truly audacious. As the ceasefire negotiations began this week, Iran didn't just demand the bombing stop, they set up a toll booth. Iran required ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz to pay the cryptocurrency equivalent of $1 per barrel of oil on board, with vessels emailing Iranian authorities about their cargo, then given seconds to pay in Bitcoin to avoid traceability due to sanctions. $1 per barrel sounds small, but a typical, very large crude carrier holds 2 million barrels, meaning Iran's toll translates to $2 million per ship. The Wall Street Journal reported that Iran was telling mediators it would limit transits to roughly 12 ships per day, controlling the flow, maximizing the fee. And then, as the ceasefire was announced, Iran's foreign minister said passage would be possible, but only through coordination with Iran's armed forces. Tehran has gone further, with pending legislation to formally codify Iranian sovereignty and control over the Strait of Hormuz, creating a permanent revenue stream. A waterway legally defined as international since 1982, Iran now wants permanent, codified sovereignty over it, with a fee, paid in crypto, to a country under Western sanctions. So where does the Trump administration stand on all this? Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth held a press conference claiming a decisive military victory, saying Iran begged for the ceasefire. Then, hours later, Trump was asked directly whether he was okay with Iran charging tolls. Trump told ABC News, "We're thinking of doing it as a joint venture. It's a way of securing it. It's a beautiful thing." The 2-week ceasefire plan included provisions that would let Oman and Iran charge tolls on ships using the strait, a fee that did not exist previously. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said Trump wants the strait open, without limitation, including tolls. So in the same 24-hour window, the White House said tolls are unacceptable, Trump called the toll a beautiful joint venture, and Hegseth declared total victory, while Iran's parliament moved toward legislation to permanently codify control. The uncomfortable truth is that geography, not firepower, is dictating outcomes. Here's the part that hits close to home. When Iran charges $1 per barrel in tolls, that cost doesn't disappear. It moves through the supply chain, onto your gas bill, into the price of every product that gets manufactured or shipped using oil. Fertilizer shipments were blocked, food insecurity concerns mounted, and aluminum markets were severely affected. Europe gets 14% of its LNG from Qatar through the strait. Up to 30% of internationally traded fertilizers normally transit the Strait of Hormuz. That's food production, globally. Brent crude prices surged above $110 a barrel before falling back to just over $90 after the ceasefire announcement. The global economy ran a fever in real time. And if the ceasefire collapses, which Iran has already threatened, we go right back to that. Here's the bottom line. Iran didn't just survive a U.S. military campaign. It turned a narrow strip of water into a toll road, kept its own oil flowing while choking off everyone else's, and extracted a ceasefire that may ultimately hand it permanent legal leverage over the world's most critical energy choke point. Trump called it total victory. Iran called it a historic win. They can't both be right. Or maybe the uncomfortable answer is that geography always wins, and whoever controls the choke point controls the conversation. So, let me ask you this. If Iran successfully makes these tolls permanent, do you think the U.S. should actually partner with them on it? Or does that cross a line no American president should ever cross? Drop your answer below, and if you found this video useful, subscribe, because this story is far from over. The next 2 weeks of negotiations will determine whether this ceasefire holds or whether the strait closes again. I'll be covering every move.